We're going to bring in our diplomatic community panel. Ed Trzanski is a former intelligence officer and senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, and former Canadian Ambassador Jeremy Kinsman also with us. Ed, I will begin with you. First off, your impressions of this launch going over Japan.
Well, he certainly ratcheted up the pressure on the United States. And just last week, you had first Secretary of State Tillerson and then the president making statements that were very conciliatory toward the North. And then the regime, the North Koreans do this. And you really do wonder at what point is enough enough. And really, China is the state that can be of greatest influence with North Korea. I'm at a loss to understand what more has to happen before the Chinese act, except that if the United States starts providing more sophisticated weaponry to both South Korea and Japan, that will get China's attention.
Jeremy, from a diplomatic point of view, this seems like an in-your-face gesture.
It is sort of, but you know, Donald Trump a few days ago, I think it was at the rally in Arizona, he boasted to the audience that the North Koreans were backing down, that they'd got the hardline fire and fury message and they were backing down. It wasn't a great or smart thing to say at that moment. And I think this is simply a message from the North Koreans that they're not backing down. It was a message being sent to the outside world because, as far as I know, the news of this missile launch over Japan hasn't been made public in North Korea itself.
Ed, what kind of response would you expect from the United Nations Security Council, which is having a meeting right as we speak?
My sense is that the Chinese are going to revert to rhetoric that tells both sides to calm down. They'll talk about the U.S. and the South Koreans engaging in military exercises, pointing out that that's contributing to some of the tension in the region, urging them to peel back on that, and then urging restraint on the part of the North Koreans. But the Chinese will continue to slow walk, and I don't see very much happening.
Jeremy, how would you get the Chinese government to stop slow walking? And is there a way that they can actually ratchet up pressure on that country?
Well, you know, Ed's right. There has to be, look, ultimately, there has to be some kind of a deal which is going to show the Chinese that the United States has something less of a military presence in South Korea. The North Koreans obviously have to calm down for the United States to be able to do that. For the Chinese and the Americans to get any kind of an agreement, they got to lower the tension between themselves on all the other topics, including trade. And so it's kind of a package here. It's a psychological package, if I may say. It's a communications package. It's a confidence package. It's not easy. We've been at it, don't forget, for I don't know how many decades now with North Korea. I mean, they're impervious to the normal sorts of arguments that the world is used to using.
Ed, this comes just weeks after sanctions were leveled, and they called them historic sanctions. Have they not taken effect yet, or does North Korea just not care?
It's not that they don't care, it's that they find ways around them. And the Chinese play a double game here. At times they make noises and they provide the appearances of being part of the sanctions regime, yet somehow the North Koreans continue to have access to capital and to raw materials, including energy, that they need. So the sanctions are not airtight. And keep in mind, the ambassador just pointed out, this has been going on for a very long time. The North Korean regime is entirely invested in the process of developing this nuclear weapon, because once it is deliverable, then everything changes. And they have much wider latitude in terms of doing whatever they want. We also need to keep in mind that the conventional threat to South Korea is significant. And on his way out of the White House, Steve Bannon, president's former advisor, made clear that the U.S. is in a very tight spot here. Anything we do will likely lead, militarily speaking, will likely lead to a large loss of life that everyone considers unacceptable.
So when the president puts out a statement that says all options are on the table, Jeremy, what do you think he means by that? And does a preemptive military action be included in that?
No, he means that I, Donald Trump, am the kind of guy who negotiates that way, and I say all options are on the table. I think Ed just made it clear that no matter what you do, however surgical, however strong, your attack is going to be on North Korea, your preemptive attack is going to be on North Korea. They're sure going to have enough left to whack Seoul, which sits, I think, 60 kilometers from the border, with a population up towards 20 million people. It would be catastrophic. And they know that that option is not on the table.
Ed, you're probably going to get the last word here. Donald Trump went down to Texas to address what is a historic situation there with that natural disaster. Do you think that this is a chance for him to sort of stabilize his administration with something that is going to be the focus in Texas for years?
Well, right now, that's a very low bar to pass, just to be responsible in the initial response. This crisis is going to last a long time. It will take years to rebuild what is being lost in Texas right now. That means you've got to fight funding battles with Congress. And the president hasn't done very well getting Congress to deliver on his agenda or to even act with purpose when the public good is in plain view. So I think before we render any opinions on Trump, we're going to have some time pass, and we'll have to see how the administration acts in stages as we go through this long process of rebuilding what's being lost.
Ed Trzanski and Jeremy Kinsman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, Scott.